So Seneca, in his second letter in the Letters from a Stoic, on discursiveness in reading, has this quote that I thought was very apt in this day and age. He said, "You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works, if you would derive ideas which shall win firm hold in your mind." And I think that's a really important idea, more so now than ever, in this day and age of the internet, where we have all these ideas around us, all these different books that we can read from all these different thinkers who have such conflicting ideas. I know, at least me personally, I've gone through so many phases in my life where I read one book and I kind of get an idea from it, and I get into a phase of thinking where I'm doing that thing so well, that life philosophy, and then instantly I flip towards something else after I read a new thing. And it kind of got me thinking that it might actually be better for a lot of us just to stick to one idea, one thinker, like Seneca says. And for me, I've decided that that's going to be the Stoics. So I went out and I bought this book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and it is something I've read many times before, but it's something now I want to delve a lot deeper into, just become really in tune in a way with Stoic philosophy, more so than any other one. And so I thought I'd give you a few quotes from this book, maybe something that encapsulates Marcus Aurelius' thoughts at least, and try and maybe convince you that these guys should be the thinkers that you listen to as well. So the first quote we've got here is, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength." And this is a very important idea in Stoicism as a whole. It's this idea that we've spoken about before. It's the dichotomy of control. So it's the kind of logic that you have two things in your life. You have either the things that you have complete control over, like for example whether you'll go on a run or whatever, and then there are things in your life that you have no control over at all, the external things. What Marcus Aurelius says is the things outside of you. So whether the sun will rise is a great example of that. And from that you can take this kind of logic that is, why would you spend so much time focusing on the things that you can't control? So many of us devote so much effort and mental strain to thinking about things like, I don't know, whether we're going to find a girl that's attracted to us, or whether we're going to get a specific job promotion, these things that we don't really have control over. So Marcus Aurelius definitely in that scenario would say, don't focus on those events so much. Think more about things that you have control over and focus on those. But then there's this third category as well, which is why it kind of becomes a trichotomy. And this third category is things that you have complete but not full control over. So for example, whether you do well on an exam or in a tennis match is an example I remember Irvine used. And it's this idea that these things, so for example the exam, is something that you don't have complete control over. You might walk in the next day and the exam is something you've never studied before, but at the same time the amount of revision that you do will directly affect the score that you get. So in this scenario, what Marcus Aurelius would say would be to shift these goals, to internalize them and bring them into the power of your mind. So for example, to say, rather than I'm going to get an A on this exam, I'm going to try as hard as I can. I'm going to revise for 5 hours a day. I'm going to revise as hard as I can. You see how the goal becomes more internal, and thus you have complete control over it. It enters the power of your mind. So the next quote we have here is, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." And it's again an idea that we've talked about before, this idea of kind of the beauty of life and appreciation of your own things. And actually in a way it's linked with another idea here by Seneca, where he's talking about your own personal possessions, if I can find the page. And basically in this quote he says, "Whoever does not regard what he has as most ample wealth is unhappy, though he be the master of the whole world." And it's this idea, and you can kind of combine both of them together, that in a way you need to become happier with the things that you have rather than desiring more things from the external world. And dwelling on the beauty of life is one very real way that we can do this. And again, it goes back to the Stoic maxim of living in accordance with nature and just doing all of these things that are in accordance with our own nature. We're seeing the beauty. Like, look, we're out here in this beautiful beach and you can see everything, and life just becomes so beautiful when you take a second to step back and really look at it. That's one of the big reasons why I like reading fiction, and so many people are so against this idea, especially in this sphere. They want to read these books that will directly improve them. But reading books by people like Murakami, for example, can have these profound effects on your life, because by fictionalizing and romanticizing a very simple life, they let you step back and look at your own life in that kind of slow way and develop a greater appreciation for it. And that's a crucial idea. A big idea inside of Stoicism is the kind of stepping back, the sort of looking at your life and learning once again to appreciate and in a way desire the things that you already have rather than the external world. So there's an idea in Stoicism called negative visualization, which speaks to this. It's the kind of practice of periodically imagining the things that you love going. So imagining maybe that you lose your sight and you can't see the things around you, or that your parents die in a freak accident the next day. And although it sounds morbid, just the act of imagining what your world would be like without these people or these things or these faculties that you have can let you appreciate them in so much more of a profound way. So then the final quote we have is a very famous one, which you might have heard before, and it goes, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." And that in itself, I think, just perfectly encapsulates the entirety of Stoic philosophy. It's this idea of just stopping the argument, stopping the discussion, stopping looking at every fucking video that you find on the internet on these answers that you're trying to seek of how to be more manly, what this idea of masculinity is, and just simply start doing it. At its core, being a man and this idea of masculinity is a very simple thing. I've got another quote here. It says, "If it's not right, do not do it. If it's not true, do not say it." And in a way, it boils down to that. It's such a simple idea of just to live well. Don't argue about living well. Just do it. Be good because it's good. Do things because you feel that they're right. Say things because you think that they're true. You don't need to argue about everything so much. I think the Buddha had a very similar idea. Inside of a lot of his philosophy, he said, well, what's the point in arguing about whether there's going to be an afterlife or reincarnation or what's going to happen to me after I die? Why not just kind of get there when I get there? And in the same way, Marcus Aurelius kind of encapsulates this same idea of stopping the discourse, slowing down for a second and just doing what you feel is right because it's right. So if you're going to take anything from this video, take this. You want to slow things down. Dial your kind of input down to maybe one or two key thinkers, philosophers, maybe the Stoics like I've done, and just go from there. The key idea in this life is just to start removing all the noise.